We're born into our names, but we become family by heart. I'm Dustin Gruss, public speaker and family transition coach. When my wife and I found out in the beginning of 2016 that we weren't going to be able to have our own biological children just 7 months into our marriage, we were shook. Little did we know what lied ahead through our journey of infertility, foster care, and where we are now, having recently adopted our two beautiful boys. What we do know is every little bit of help we got along the way was priceless. And that's what we can expect with this podcast. Stories of inspiration and resources to lead you through that journey. From the heartbreak of infertility to the hope and blessings that come with foster care and adoption. We may have different stories, backgrounds, and names, but we're all family here. This is Family by Heart. What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Family by Heart. I'm your host, Dustin Gruss. You know, here with this podcast, we discuss all the different ways that we grow our families, whether it be through foster care, adoption, pets, our four-legged furry friends, or no legs if you're someone that likes snakes and fish, those kind of animals as well. Whatever it is, because we are born into our names, but we become family by heart. Now, early on, the episodes were more centered around infertility or fertility issues. If you want to go get away from the word infertility, you want to transcend it, as my one guest, Dr. Maria Rothenberger, believed in. But we've also started diving into foster care, as May is Foster Care Awareness Month. And unfortunately, we had to miss a week last week as myself and my two boys ended up getting COVID. And we were just basically getting by. Thankfully, it wasn't anything too serious. And the boys are doing just fine. I definitely had some lethargy and dealt with some symptoms. My wife somehow managed to escape it all, and we were thankful for that because I didn't want her to get sick or deal with any of the symptoms and go through it, but also put a little bit more on me because I was having to, we were keeping her isolated as much as possible, and that left me already doing the stay-at-home dad thing, more time where it was just me and the kids. She helped as much as she could without putting herself at risk. But, here we are now. So we just had to miss a week of the podcast. So I apologize for that. Still have some great episodes coming up for the month for Foster Care Awareness Month. And today we're going to talk about what it takes to become a foster parent, because there are a lot of people, my wife and I get asked often, like, well, what'd you have to do to become a licensed foster parent? And so there's certain things that you have to do. Jamal Callahan and I touched on it a little bit, that there's some pre-service training that you have to do, and the hours varies depending on where you live, but that's one of the things you have to do, and we'll go over some of them. And I have a nice little kind of figure graphic that I got from a group I follow on Instagram that is for children's sake, and it's an awesome adoption agency, private agency, foster to adopt agency in Virginia. And they have a nice graphic that's got some of the key things that you need to have or be aware of when it comes to becoming a foster parent. So I'm going to kind of use that as my guide, just to remind me, because, as we get older, we sometimes forget, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So as mentioned, there's pre-service training classes that you have to go through. one important thing to note is, depending when you're at, you have private agencies and you have public, like county or city or whatever you might have where you're from, where you're at. And there are differences in each state. For instance, I talked with one of the members of For Children's Sake, Kelly Willis, and she had said that, in Virginia, and where her agency in general, if you're fostering through their agency and waiting to adopt, they provide assistance for daycare, which here in Ohio, private agencies did not offer assistance for daycare, which is one of the reasons my wife and I went through public, why we went through the counties, because at the time we were both working full-time jobs and we definitely needed assistance. We needed daycare and we needed to make sure that we could afford to send them daycare, which is why now that we're not getting that assistance, that I'm a stay-home dad with the boys 5 days a week at home. And of course the weekends as well. But it just made more sense for me to stay home and really be a big part of the kids growing up and the way they learn to self-soothe and regulate themselves. It was important for me to be a part of that now that we have officially adopted our boys. So, again, there is going through county, there's going through private agency, and the hours, depending on where you live and what you go through, will vary on the pre-service training classes you have to take. For us, it was 38 hours, roughly 40 hours that you needed to take. And it, depending on, again, where you are and what you go through, will depend on when the classes are. Like, we know there was Tuesday and Thursday evenings where we're at, but we elected to do a Friday evening and all day Saturday, which sped up the process for us. And so again, just kind of depends on where you go. But as you're going through the pre-service training, they will do other things to make sure that you are qualified to become a foster parent, like doing a background check. They're going to check your credit history, your criminal history. You have to have a clean record. There are some things, again, depending on where you're at, that are forgivable, especially if you're older and you might have a record for, having shoplifted or a misdemeanor of some sort from when you were younger. And some certain things, as long as it's not, I think, a assault, physical abuse, sexual misconduct, anything like that, I think a lot of those things are usually can be overlooked. But again, the more clear your record, the better it's going to be. And again, they do background checks. They will actually talk to family members. You got to get reference letters from friends and family. And depending on, again, it varies what you go through, who they're going to want those reference letters from. Like, we had to do, I believe, 2 family members and 2 non-family members. And I think you had to know how long, like you had to know them for a certain amount of years too. So again, that all varies. So pre-service training, background checks, clean record. In addition to that clean record, one of the big things is driving. You don't necessarily have to have a driver's license, but you must have a way to safely transport the child or youth that comes to live with you. Public transportation, that's fine. But one of the things to think about is that if there's going to be visitation with the birth parents, the bio parents, if you're going to be involved in that at all. It really just depends. We got involved. We wanted to be part of the transportation on our end. We heard some horror stories about transportation through the county. It's not to say that all the people that do transport in county are terrible, but we just heard some stories where they weren't really as concerned with the child. They just didn't have the car seat strapped in the right way, the right size, the right rear facing or front facing. It really just depends. But making sure you have safe, reliable transportation to get to those kind of meetings, to get to school if the child is enrolled in school. So those are two of the things. So yeah, that. Of course, you got to have a safe home for them to be at and a place for them to sleep. And by place for them to sleep, I mean like their own room, a bed for their size. And if you're going to have a baby, you have to have a crib. Toddlers need a toddler bed. Older than that, you need a single twin bed. So you have to have all the things for the right size. And part of the inspection, the background check and all that, they actually do come inspect your home and make sure based on what age you say you want, they make sure you have all the things you need for a child that age. So for instance, if you were to say that you're open to fostering babies all the way through 12-year-olds, that meant you had to have a crib, a toddler bed, a twin bed to be able to sleep any of those, because you could get a call at any point in that time, and you need to make sure you have those. You also have to have the proper car seats or booster seats for them for any of those ages as well. And just those kind of clothes, you need to make sure you have clothes for them. You do get, depending on where you're at, a clothing voucher for when they first arrive with you, and depending on how long the foster child or foster youth is with you, you could probably get another clothing voucher to use and make sure they have more clothes. Sometimes they come with clothes, sometimes they don't. A lot of times, if they are bringing stuff, it's in a trash bag. And there are some awesome organizations out there that are trying to kind of get rid of that, make sure that these foster agencies, if they're moving a foster child, that they don't just have a trash bag, that they have like an actual luggage, nice, fun or friendly or just nice looking suitcase to use to transport their stuff. So that's something to think about too, is make sure that you know what age you are wanting to foster. And also, my wife and I talked about it in our episodes and that would be our story, and that would be episodes 2 and 3 of this podcast. The other thing you gotta know is what you are willing to work with. What I mean by that is any limitations that they might have, anything that handicaps them, or any kind of behavioral issues or medical issues. You have to know what you're willing to work with. Just so you can properly make sure it's a good experience. Because again, if you remember the last episode I had with Jamal Callahan, we also talked about how often these kids are moved. And each time a foster youth is moved from one home to another, that's a traumatic experience. And sometimes it could be avoided if people say, no, I'm not able to handle that right away. Now, there's times where some of these issues are missed and you aren't made aware of it right away, and you find out once the youth is already in your home, and there's nothing you can do about that. But making sure you know what you're willing to work with and what you're willing to say yes or no to. Again, my wife and I, we were fortunate with our cases. Our two cases were really not high level stress cases in the sense of any of those kind of traumatic behavioral medical issues by any means. It was very low key for both cases in that sense. There were still moments of high stress for us, but really, I mean, we were very fortunate with the cases that we had. But just know that there's times where they're going to ask you, and you have to realize that you can say no if you are not comfortable or you're not ready. And it does not mean you're going to get taken off the list. It's, they just want to make sure that these kids have an opportunity to thrive and grow and be safe. So make sure you pay attention to that and you're aware of what you're willing to work with and what you're not. And it's okay to stand firm in that. Again, with the inspections, background checks, they're going to come check out your house. Usually the fire department will come do a fire inspection as well. Make sure you have escape routes posted for the child to know, the youth to know, like in the case of a fire, what their exits are, their exit strategies, how to get out of the house. Make sure that you have fire extinguishers that are updated and working, and that your medicine is put away, your alcohol is put away, any weapons are put away. So make sure that the house is safe for any youth to be there. So you have the home inspections. There are age limits, again, depending on where you live. And then other than that, like, single, married, gay, straight, transgender, I mean, those things, I think that all depends on where you live and what the laws are there. I personally, I think, any home that's full of love and able to provide a safe, nurturing environment is good for any kid. And that's how I feel. It's what I believe. And I have some wonderful friends that have adopted, and I think they're great people. Yeah. So that's the main things when it comes to, can I be a foster parent? Again, know what you're willing to work with, know what you want to foster, what you're ready to say no to. Age, gender, if you have any biases or things that you aren't willing to learn or know or do because of your beliefs, it's okay to say no to that. That's your personal choice, because you have to be ready to accept the way you're going to have the rules in your house, but you also have to respect the rules and the wants of the bio needs. So, for instance, if they are of one religion and you're another, you cannot force them to go to church with you, or your synagogue or mosque or whatever it may be. So just be aware of those cultural and religious differences too, and know that, you have to pretty much follow what the bio parents want, even though the child or youth is not with the bio parent. So know what you're willing to work with, know what you're not. You're going to have a background check, criminal background, credit check, all that, debt, all that kind of stuff. They're going to check your house, make sure it's safe for a child to be in. Fire departments can come check it out, make sure it's safe as well. Have reliable transportation to get them to school, to meetings, to visits, that kind of stuff. And then again, you have the pre-service training. So that those are basically the things that you need for becoming a foster parent. Anyone can do it. You can be single, you can be married, depending where you are. There might be some, there's some areas that are not as liberal, so they might have some prejudices against gay people and the way some other laws are going right now. I hope that doesn't change, or I hope certain things aren't overturned, because I think anyone can be a good parent if they have their heart in it and are committed to the safety of that child. But that's pretty much it as far as becoming a foster parent. Again, it is Foster Care Awareness Month. Do look into talk to your Department of Children and Family Services or Job and Family Services, depending on where you're at. There are awesome organizations, as Jamal and I mentioned in the last episode, and just do your due diligence when it comes to deciding if you want to be a foster parent or not. And again, he mentioned it, and I'm supporting it wholeheartedly. Feel free to become a mentor first, or look into organizations like the Cleveland Angels or the Angel Network in general, that offer support to the foster system in other ways as well, and kind of dip your feet in that way first before you decide if you want to be a foster parent, if you're really not quite sure. And one more thing I will say, if you are married or not, if you have kids, make sure that they are on board with it. Because if your kids are not on board with you bringing in a stranger, who's going to be a stranger first, into their home, it's not going to go well. We didn't have to worry about that, of course, but we've heard stories. And make sure your kids are on board, that they know what you're doing, as well as make sure you and your spouse are on the same page when it comes to deciding if you are or aren't going to be foster parents, or how you can help the situation. But that's going to be it for this episode. Hopefully it wasn't too much rambling and you got some useful information out of it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Dustin at stepuptogreatness.com. Please make sure you like, comment, and share where able when it comes to this podcast. And again, just if you have any questions, let me know. In the meantime, just make sure that you are taking care of your friends and family. We may have different ideas, different beliefs, and different agendas, but we can all still be family by heart. See you next time.